Hi, welcome back to Fuzzy Files, a video series for people who are pet sitters, planning to be a pet sitter, have a pet sitter, or just enjoy hearing about animal things. Whoever you are, I'm happy you're here, and I hope you will like and subscribe if you enjoy this channel, and leave comments at the end if you have anything to say. Today, what I plan to cover is the 10 pet peeves of pet sitters. I had certainly many more than that, but I will just cover the big ones that I can think of. And we may even have another 1 or 2 or 15 episodes about that at some point in the future. Let's get started. Number 10, don't leave your kitchen sink looking like a science experiment, okay? People have to come in and clean your cat or dog or whoever's food dishes and water bowls, and they should have a clean sink available for that. If it's not clean, at least it needs to be empty. So please don't leave your dirty dishes piled up in the sink. That is just not acceptable. I actually had a pet sitter who, despite the fact that my kitchen sink was pristine, she decided not to clean the cat's bowls at all while we were gone for 10 days. I mean, they were crusted. Anyway, yeah, neither side needs to leave something dirty. You know, if you're a pet sitter, you leave things as nicely as they were when you came in. And if you are the person who hires the pet sitter, please have the consideration to leave your kitchen sink clean and accessible for when they come. Just think about that when you hire someone. Other things in the house. If you have a hoarded house, that's fine as long as the pet sitter can get in and out and they don't have trouble finding the pets. And that's another situation entirely that we'll get into, how to find a cat. It's usually a cat. What can I say? Dogs don't hide. Although once in a while they might, but it's usually the cat. We need to be able to find the pets so we are sure they're alive, as long as you have that situation so that they can be found. We do have techniques, and I'm going to actually do a video on the technique of how to find a cat that will not come out. But you want to make sure that the house is safe enough and accessible enough in all the areas where the pets might be. Also, if you have an alarm, please tell your pet sitter you have an alarm. Please tell them that you will be setting the alarm if you were going to, and what the alarm code is. And in case they can't reach you and they accidentally set it off and they can't turn it off, if the alarm company calls, you need to tell them if there's something special they need to tell the alarm company, like a password or something. Pet sitters, if you set an alarm off that you weren't expecting to be on and you don't know the code and you don't know what to do and you can't reach the client, do your best to quickly get the pets out of the house, just because those alarms are ear-piercing. But if you can't, time is of the essence. Once an alarm has been triggered, the police are going to come unless the client can get it turned off remotely. So you need to be outside the house when the police come, because if they don't know the situation, even if you explain to them, hey, I'm the pet sitter, if you're in the house and the alarm's going off and there's nobody else around, you may be arrested. So be outside the house so they can't prove that any crime is being committed. Just a little heads up about that. The other thing is, please, clients, understand that your pet sitter, does work out in all kinds of weather. But if you expect them to come into your home and spend time with your pets, usually cats, or, but sometimes when the weather's bad, they'll stay indoors and play with your dog. But if it's winter and it's really cold out, please don't set your thermostat to like 50. And in the summer, please don't set it to 80 or 85. It might be okay for the pets, but the pet sitter's not going to be comfortable at all. And if you expect someone to spend even 20 minutes in your house, please try to keep that temperature at a reasonable level so that they're not, either freezing or sweating to death. Number 9, if you go on vacation and you decide to come home 3 days early, don't ask for a refund, please. The pet sitter has set aside a certain number of days and times specifically for you. And if you come home early, unexpectedly, they've lost 3 days. Say you come home 3 days early, they've lost 3 days of income that they can't make up, because it's too late to schedule anybody else at the last minute like that. And a good pet sitter will have in their contract what their cancellation policy is. So I hope they will have that. But if they don't, have the consideration to understand that you canceled on them when they already set that time aside for you, and don't expect a refund, or at least don't expect a full refund for that. Because that can really affect their income. Number 8, complaining about a pet sitter's reasonable fees. You might be used to, Sally, Jimmy, or Joe, or whoever down the street, the daughter of your neighbor, taking care of your pet once in a while when you go away. But If you're hiring a professional pet sitter who is bonded, insured, they have credentials such as they've worked as a vet tech, or they have taken a fear-free pet sitting class, or gotten a certification from a trade association, or they have taken pet first aid. They have a lot of experience, and they also have created an actual business, which costs money to run. You have to pay taxes. So if you pay them, $20 for a dog walk, they're not getting $20. They're getting maybe 15. That's after taxes, and then take off expenses, and they might be getting $12. And these are grown people with businesses. So please understand that if they tell you what their fee is, factor all of that in before you decide to say that's really expensive, because in their minds, they're charging you a really reasonable fee. I mean, sure, some people charge outrageous fees, but check around and you'll find out that most pet sitters' fees are in line with all the other pet sitters' fees, and they're not gouging you. They're not getting rich either, especially solo sitters. I will cover something in another video about how much you can actually make as a pet sitter, but that is usually if you have employees. Because in order to make money, you have to have people helping you out. And that's really the bottom line, because a solo person can only do so much. And I did so much work. I burned out many a time, because during the Christmas season, doing over 20 jobs in one day, and never got to enjoy Christmas or any other holiday or any other weekend. I was working constantly, and I didn't make a lot of money. I made a living, but there was a trade-off because of the amount of time that I had to spend working. So customers, clients, please keep that in mind. Pet sitters work all kinds of crazy hours, and they don't make a lot of money. If anybody's making money, it's the owner of the pet sitting business when they have employees. It's not the people that come who work for them. Just wanted to keep things real as far as cost, and understand that if you want a luxury service, you should pay the fee. And really, pet sitters coming into your home while you're away is a luxury service. Most people can't afford it. And if you can, then understand that there is a cost involved. Number 7, expecting the pet sitter to be there at the same time that you would walk your dog, like 6 a.m. or midnight. No, usually we don't work that late. We have to sleep. We're not vampires. You have to take into account that pet sitters usually give you a 2-hour window where they might be there between 7 and 8 or 7 and 9 instead of 6 a.m. And also understand that they have to do their jobs in a geographically logical manner, because if they have a job that's 3 houses down from where they live, they're probably going to walk that dog first. And you might be 5 blocks away, and there might be 1 or 2 other pets before you, because they have to be able to go from point A to point B in a logical way. Otherwise, they're just driving all day. And that is something that you have to understand, because they can't always be there right away. We, as pet sitters, have multiple clients on any given day, and we have to try to accommodate everyone the best we can. So we will tell you the window. Please don't expect us to be an hour earlier than the window that we tell you. Number 6, refusing to let the pet sitter use their own equipment, meaning leashes, collars, whatever, on your dog. Now, you might think your dog is easygoing and that super frayed loose harness or collar or almost broken leash are just adequate and not a worry, and they're used to it, so that's what you should use. Well, pet sitters have a lot of experience, and they can tell right away if a collar or a leash can be escaped from, and they don't want to take that chance. And frankly, I would usually try to have either a martingale collar, or for certain dogs who neck problems or whatever, a rabbit go harness, which is really hard to get out of. Harness has to be just the right fit for the dog to wear without any risk of escape, or very, very little risk of escape. And a martingale collar can really help to assure that they're not going to slip out of it. And so you should trust your pet sitter if they have these items, and let them use them, because that's what they're used to and that's what they know is safe. So please don't try to second guess the sitter on this, because they might be perfectly safe with you, with your tools, but they might not be with somebody else, because all it takes is for an animal to get frightened or startled, or to want to take off after, a squirrel or what have you. So you need to have the equipment that is safe and secure, and that the pet sitter is most comfortable with. So please consider that. Number 5, Weather. As pet sitters, we work out in all kinds of weather: snow, ice, rain, thunderstorms, excessive heat, excessive cold. We try to prepare for that the best we can. And, you know, if you're a good pet sitter, you know that ice is slippery. You're going to have something like yak tracks. And of course, in the rain, you're going to have a whole suit of rain gear to keep you dry, because you're not just doing one job. You'll probably be doing several in a row, and you do not want, you know, trench foot. But as the customer or client, please consider, if you're home from work because the weather is so bad they canceled your job for that day, or they told you you didn't have to come in. If it's that bad, please contact your sitter and let them know that, you know, they don't have to come if they don't want to, because you can let the dog out in the yard. And this is for midday walks that I'm talking about. I have had clients who, I go out in the horrible weather to get to their house, and I walk in, you know, they're home, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to come today. The weather's so bad." You didn't call and tell me not to come, so I came. That's just what a good responsible sitter does. So think about that. Think about their safety, because not only do they have to walk in all kinds of weather, but they have to drive in it, and especially if it's icy. And then if it's thunderstorming, have some grace about the time period during which they would normally walk your dog, because you don't want them out walking in a thunderstorm. It's not safe for them, and it's not safe for the dog. And most sitters, if they have a brain in their head, will say, "I'm not going to walk them until this storm passes." Just think about that and have some kindness for your sitter, and understand that it is not easy working in all kinds of weather. Number 4, not disclosing aggression issues or other behavior issues, such as jumping on people, chasing squirrels, you know, just going ballistic when they see a squirrel or another animal run, or a hatred of men, or a propensity to chase the UPS truck, you know. Whenever you're hiring a sitter, think about all the behavioral issues that your dog has, and let them know. And let them know on the phone or in the Time to Pet app, if that's how you're doing this. They need to be aware of all the behavioral issues that could come up, so they can be prepared, and especially with aggression. If you have an aggressive dog, you need to tell them that immediately, because you don't want the pet sitter coming over and there being an incident at the meet and greet. And I've covered this in a previous video, that I had someone who had these very aggressive dogs, and I didn't even feel safe in the interview, much less would I have felt safe going to the house by myself with these dogs. So please be aware of the need for the pet sitter to remain safe so they can do their job. And if they don't feel safe, then you need to find someone who is more experienced with reactive dogs and will be willing to do this. Number 3, dogs that pull, especially huskies, you know, if they're like looking to join an Iditarod sled race, you need to let your pet sitter know that your dogs are not trained. And that is the big deal. If your dogs are just not trained, and as soon as they get on the leash, they're like, "Oh, I don't know what this thing is, and I'm going to try to outrun it," you know. And by outrunning the leash, they might be dragging you into another zip code. So please don't fail to mention that your dogs might just pull the pet sitter down. I had a client whose own dog pulled her downstairs and broke her collarbone. It's no joke. I mean, you have to be very, very careful. A slight person who weighs like 95 pounds probably is not going to be a good fit for walking 2 Rottweilers, especially if they pull. The honest truth is that no matter how strong or capable you are, 2 very large dogs that are not trained can easily pull anyone down. When you hire a pet sitter, you may want to say up front, "Hey, are you a big husky guy who can handle 2 really crazy large dogs?" Because sometimes that's what's required. Don't expect a 90-pound woman to be able to do that, because training is important. It's easy to handle 2 really large dogs as long as they're well trained, but if they're not, then you're asking for trouble. Number 2, last minute pet requests. That was a big deal for me. I mean, too many times I would want to enjoy what I thought was a weekend off for the first time maybe in a year. And on Friday afternoon, somebody calls and says, "Oh, we booked a hotel for the weekend out of town, and can you come this evening, and we'll be back on Sunday night." Yeah, no, I did often accommodate such requests for good clients because I didn't want to disappoint them, but I'm sure they never understood that I might have had plans, because I was a solo sitter for so many years. And if I had had people who could have helped me, that would have been different. But A solo sitter rarely gets a weekend off, and unfortunately that is the truth. At least they can do some planning if they get enough advance warning that they're going to have to work on a certain weekend. So please keep in mind that these are people who also would like to have a weekend off once in a while, and if you could make your plans farther in advance, that would make everybody happier. Okay, we have come down to my biggest favorite pet peeve. I don't know how to put that exactly, because it's my biggest pet peeve, and it's the one I most want to talk about and most want to spread the word about to everyone in the world, because it really irritated me as a pet sitter. I'm frankly glad that I only have cats, because this is something, whether you're a pet sitter or you own your own pets, that you can encounter at any time, and it's incredibly frustrating. So I would walk through parks a lot of the time with the dogs I would walk. You know, they'd have trails through the parks, and in the big grassy areas, we would often see maybe a coffee clutch of women with their 4 dogs out there running loose, chasing each other, having a great old time. But these dogs weren't, you know, trained on voice recall. And I'd be walking with a dog, and all of a sudden one of the dogs would break loose from the pack and just tear straight towards us. And, you know, from like 500 feet away, one of the women would yell, "Oh, don't worry, he's friendly." That is the most hated phrase in all of pet sitting, I think. Don't worry, he's friendly. So what? So what if he's friendly? You don't know if the dog he's aiming for is friendly and wants that intrusion. And you don't know if the person walking the dog might be someone with a heart condition, or, you know, someone who is terrified because their dog had been attacked before by a loose dog. I mean, it's rude and inconsiderate, and in many cases illegal. I know in my state, having a dog off leash, unless it's passed something called a canine good citizen test, which I'm not sure if they have to wear a vest or something proving that, but for the most part, all dogs have to be leashed at all times unless they're in an enclosed designated dog park. It is a horrible feeling to be walking a dog and see a loose dog racing straight towards you. It doesn't matter if supposedly both dogs are friendly. It could be more than 2 dogs. Sometimes 2 dogs would race toward my one dog, or one dog would race toward the 2 dogs I was walking. So, you know, the odds of there being some sort of an encounter that's not pleasant were pretty high, and it happened with some frequency, and it just made me so upset. After a few minutes of, you know, dogs barking and growling at each other, maybe the person would call the dog and they'd come back, but it's like there's no excuse for that. It's just unacceptable. So please do not be in a position to have to yell to a stranger with a dog, "Don't worry, he's friendly," because you're already being rude, inconsiderate, and probably breaking the law. So please, 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 please don't do it. And that concludes my 10 pet peeves for pet sitting for today. Thank you for watching. I would greatly appreciate your comments, and if you would like and subscribe if you enjoy this channel, and take care of yourselves and all your fuzzy buddies.